So the tax thing. We're being told, or Rachel Reeves is being told, she won't listen, but she's being told that the next lot of tax hikes will cost us, will cost the Treasury, will cost more than they raise. We know that. We've said that all along. Everyone has said that all along. What's it going to take for her to listen? What's it going to take for her to actually go, that's a bit of a boo-boo? But here we are in September. So we're at the start of an academic year. We're at the start of the new academic year where there should have been the first tranche of VAT being added to education. And it's not. It's been in place since January. And what we know since January is that tens of thousands of children have left the independent sector. Tens of thousands of children haven't signed up to the education or the independent sector. And the state system has now inherited these children. Now, at the beginning of this, as we all know, it was well documented, pay your VAT, shut up and pay your tax. If you can afford to send your child there in the first place, then you can afford to pay an extra 20%. There was an outpouring of, really, that's not possible. If your mortgage went up 20%, would you be able to pay it, or would you have to sell your home? And there was zero empathy from a lot of people, posh private schools. And it was all under this rhetoric that Bridget Phillipson and Angela Rayner and Ellie Reeves and Rachel Reeves, Keir Starmer stayed a bit quiet on it because he couldn't really say too much, could he? Because effectively he went to a private school, so that's a bit awkward. Jonathan Brash used to teach in one and went to one. So there were a few that said lots of things. There were a few that didn't say so much. There were a few that openly went to and had an independent school education and came out with the knives, get rid of the independent sector. So there was a lot of hate and a lot of vitriol towards parents who chose something different. There was, by the way, no hate or vitriol to parents who chose private nurseries. That was okay. And there was no hate or vitriol to people that chose private healthcare. That too was okay. It was just those that chose private education for their children. And in that, it was really easy to ignore the fact that so many of those parents had chosen it because the state system didn't work for their child. So it was really easy to ignore the massive percentage of children that were in the independent sector with special educational needs and disabilities, although I would like to call them abilities. But we have to go with what the majority is. So lots of people glossed over that because it's really difficult, isn't it, to openly support a tax that penalises a child with needs. But it's really, really easy to have a go at those people who are saying they can't afford to pay their tax and tell them, well, they are depriving children who can't afford a breakfast. That's what it boiled down to. It was education versus breakfast. And the breakfast is, of course, the free breakfast clubs that weren't free. They were never free. They were taxpayer funded. No money from the independent sector went into those breakfasts. No teachers turned up. We were going to have 6,500 new teachers. We're not having those. There was no money. If there had been any money, it was going into social housing. It wasn't going into education. So that bit was glossed over. That was forgotten. And it was all about removing tax breaks for the independent sector. And it was fueled by a hatred of the independent sector for many personal reasons, but they were all personal reasons. And we were sold this dummy of everyone must go to state and be the same. Everybody must have the same mainstream education, and children with special educational needs and disabilities must go into mainstream education, but they'll be put in a hub. So they'll be sort of like slightly ostracised from mainstream education, but they'll be in mainstream education because once they're in mainstream education, then Labour has control of them. That's what it was about. It was always about controlling what goes into children's minds and what the product they will become is. So we didn't look at any of the effects of what might happen to these soon-to-be adults once they'd been pushed into a system that didn't suit their needs. We didn't look at that because we didn't care about that, because that was further down the line and we were just experimenting for now, but we weren't saying we were experimenting. So we didn't look about the knock-on effect of what these laws would have on them, both in behaviour, emotional stability, mental stability, and of course outcome. Now, for some children, they will aspire to get 10 GCSEs because that fits their academic profile. For some children, they will aspire to have 5 GCSEs because that fits their academic profile. One is not better than the other. They are just fulfilling their needs and getting from education what they need to get from it. And that's okay. And the reason that that's okay is because this whole world is made up of different people with different needs and different abilities, and that's what makes it a rich fabric. It's what makes it a rich society. I am really good at the creatives. I cannot do a number. If you put it in front of me, I am no good at it. Does that mean I'm a failure? Or does that mean I'm good at creatives? I think it means the latter. But Bridget Phillipson wants all of our children in a mainstream education that is directed by Labour for the outcome of Labour, which is the little robot that gets taught by Labour to be a Labour Party person, child, whatever. It's no wonder we want the vote at 16, because by the time we've had Labour and politics on the curriculum since they were 11, what do we think they're going to do? We think, in the Labour ideology, that they're going to vote for the Labour Party. Are they, heck? They've seen their parents penalised by this. They've seen their grandparents penalised by this. Those in the farming community have seen their businesses, their farms, everything that they hold dear to them eroded by the Labour Party. So they didn't think that bit through. They just thought that if they got them in a classroom, and by force, because let's remember that we are making sure that all of our children go to school either by fining their parents, by threatening their parents with imprisonment, or in some schools in Lincolnshire, offering them a flat screen TV if they have 100% attendance. Since I did that video yesterday, I had so many comments saying in our school it's iPads. So this is not new. It's not just the school in Lincolnshire. I just didn't know about it. We're bribing kids to go to school. So that's what's happening. That's our great educational establishment that is the UK at the minute. It was never like that before. Hello, sausage. Before, it was all about the freedom, the parents' freedom to choose which school they wanted their child to go to, and they could do that by many means. They could do that by moving to an area where they had a good catchment and a good school. They could do that by paying for a tutor to get them into a grammar school. They could do that by paying for a tutor to get them into a selective school. They could do that by buying the actual education at source from the independent sector. Or they could do that by going to the school that they had locally on their doorstep that was the one that was available and they felt fit their children's needs. Or they could do that by just going to the one that they were assigned because that's what they did. They just went to that one. You know, it's that rich tapestry of we get to do what we want to do because we're individuals, until, of course, July 2024, when the Labour Party got into power. So we've been told that the tax is actually costing the taxpayer. So we knew that anyway. We told everybody that anyway. We said it's going to cost, but it was so busy being driven by spite and how dare you send your child to a school that I can't send my child to, that we lost sight of that. We lost sight that in the long run, it will cost you not only financially, because now the taxpayer is having to fund those children that are in the state system. So when Bridget Phillipson says she's giving £7,000 of free childcare to nursery kids, she's not. She's actually down 500 quid because it's going to cost £7,500 to educate these children that are coming from the independent sector into the state sector. So it's costing money. We don't have the resources, we don't have the teachers, we don't have the school places. So it's also costing an education for a child. And that is the currency we are dealing in. We are dealing with children's education. We are taking the education from one child to allegedly promote the education of another child. How is that fair? How is that equal? If we're all supposed to be equal, which is a stupid word that doesn't exist, because how can we be equal if we are not the same? It's not possible. Nothing is the same. We have our own individual DNA structures, we have our own individual characteristics, and we are our own individuals. We cannot be equal because we are not equal. We can, however, want to have the best out of the education system that we can get, and we can, however, want to get the best out of a different education system that we can get. We can, however, make sure that whatever it is that we are doing for our children's education is the right thing by them and treating them fairly. Now that we can do. We can treat children, all children, fairly. But equal is not the same. Equal is a stupid word that would suggest that everybody is the same and everybody has the same needs and everybody has the same output and everybody has the same desires in life. They don't. My dachshund doesn't want to be, well, she does want to be a Labrador. She's a dachshund and she's really happy with that. So she doesn't like going out to do a wee and a poo. She'd rather do it on the kitchen floor. My Labrador is a dog. So by virtue, they are the same. They are both dogs. But my Labrador does not like to do a wee or a poo inside. They like to go outside, get as wet and muddy as they possibly can and bring that inside with them. You see, they're all dogs, but they're different. So children are all children, but they're different. But we have managed to get ourselves muddled into this stupid ideology that Bridget Phillipson says that we are all the same, we must all have the same EHCPs. There will no longer be a legally binding contract for children to have the special educational need that they deserve. That is right. Legal rights are being eroded from children with special educational needs and disabilities. Yep. And that is the Labour government that is in power. That is what Bridget Phillipson is all about. When she tweets, when she talks about all children, she doesn't mean all children. She means very specific group of children. And that very specific group of children is the one that's in her head, where she's writing her perceived wrongs of her own childhood. She talks about it openly, about kids that came from streets like the one that she came in. She talks about it because her experience, her interpretation of that childhood was negative. Now, I've said this before. My mum came from a council estate and her interpretation and her experience was positive. The amount of people, you can read the comments, who have commented on my videos and said, how dare she? How dare she suggest that our council house upbringing was anything other than wonderful? Because it was. But she's applied her own experience to all of our children. It's a bit like if you say, when somebody says, oh, I've just got divorced, and you immediately go, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Why? Your divorce might have been awful, but their divorce might have been amazing, could have been the best thing that ever happened to them. The only common denominator is divorce, the word. Nothing else makes it the same. Yet in I was going to say strive, but that's not the word, but the fact that the way that we are striving to all be equal, all be the same, it is simply not possible. And now what we've done is impose a tax on all children. And we are now costing the nation money. We are costing the taxpayer £7,500 a year that they weren't spending before. So on top of everything else that's gone up, on top of all the other things that you're having to pay more for your rent, for your mortgage, for your heating, for your food, for your existence, your tax is going to go up. It has to go up because we have just overloaded a state system that was already in trouble and is now on life support. And we've done that because Bridget Phillipson and Rachel Reeves imposed VAT on education. And for all the videos that I've done historically, and people have said, why do you do so many videos about education? Well, it's blatantly, blindingly obvious. If we can't get education right, everything else hinges on it. No other decision can be made that would affect anyone, whether you have children or not, without getting education right. It is the hallmark, the linchpin, the foundations of society. Because if we don't get children's childhoods right, we have to pay to put it right, if we can, in later life. And we are getting it so very wrong that we are bankrupting ourselves as a society.